Hello, and welcome in Ghana,
Thank you.
Accra, and hello to everyone online. My name is Anna Krauß. I'm General Secretary of the Council of Lutheran Churches in Great Britain, and tonight I'm speaking to Jeremy Morris from the Church of England. Jeremy, could you briefly introduce who you are?
Yes, hello. I am the National Advisor for Ecumenical Relations for the Church of England, which means that I have to advise the Church on its relationships with non-Anglican churches, and I also work closely with the Archbishop of Canterbury and advise him on the Church of England's ecumenical activity, and so on. So it's a quite comprehensive job, a really stimulating job, and that's what brings me to Ghana for the Global Christian Forum.
Brilliant. So, is it your first time at the Global Christian Forum?
It is, absolutely. In fact, it's my first time in Accra.
Wow, yeah. Mine too. So, brilliant. And so what are your impressions of this ecumenical gathering, first day?
Well, I think two things, actually. First of all, an amazing blaze of colour. I think it's the extraordinary colourful nature of traditional dress here and so on. That obviously is part of it. But, you've got people from all over the world, very, very wide range of Christian traditions. People dressed in, traditional clothes or, obviously casual clothes as well. But anyway, a riot of colour. That's one impression. The other one, I think, is the sheer kind of informality and chaos of it, which is really rather engaging. So it's not very heavily organised event. It's mostly about personal contact and talking to people and getting to know people and sharing your experience of hearing theirs and so forth. And it's not dedicated to a particular outcome, but because of that, it can afford to be very, very informal, and I think that's great, actually.
So does that set this particular global gathering apart from other global ecumenical movements?
It does, in my experience. So I've been to the World Council of Churches General Assembly. I've also some experience of the Conference of European Churches, which are quite bureaucratized bodies. Probably they have to be because, they are bodies which have specific outcomes. They pass resolutions, they have projects that they follow and so forth. But nonetheless, they particularly the World Council actually, because it draws together representatives from all over the world, and it tries to have a kind of democratic mode of operation and so on. But it's actually really very very cumbersome, I think, actually. This is very different.
Great. So you're enjoying your time so far.
Yeah.
What are you most looking forward to over the next 3 days?
Well, I'm looking forward to it, but I think it's going to be challenging. Tomorrow we're going to see Cape Coast Castle, which is one of the slave castles, where slave traders were protected, but also where slaves were incarcerated. I'm told that Anglican services, and as an Anglican this is particularly challenging, Anglican services were held on the level above where slaves were kept, and they would have been able to hear the services. But when you think that this was a celebration of a faith that ought to be liberated, and a faith that abolishes the distinction between slave and free, according to our own scriptures, then actually that's pretty shocking. So I think that will be a challenging experience, but also I think an important one. Beyond that, I think actually just the opportunity to meet more and more people and to build more bridges. And I think that's the great thing about this, is that it is a way of just bringing people together from very different traditions, despite their differences, and despite things on which we really strongly disagree.
So, thinking about our shared context in England, do you think there's already something that you might want to bring back into the ecumenical scene, or maybe between Anglicans and Lutherans?
Yes. Specifically between Anglicans and Lutherans, I'm not so sure, simply because in my experience we have such a strong kind of relationship anyway. But I do think that the model of really informal personal encounter that this is a really interesting one that could be used really at the more local or regional level in the UK. I think it'd be interesting to think about that, actually. I mean, one of the things that is, I think, as an Anglican, you can't help but feel here is that despite the really extraordinary differences and divisions in the Anglican communion at the moment, there are actually Anglicans here who come from really very, very diverse churches, and many others, and so meeting people, this is a place in which we can meet, whereas actually the formal Anglican communion meetings and so on have become very, very difficult. So I think this is something I would want to think about, how we might be able to draw on it in the future.
Great. Thank you very much for talking to me.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.